Welcome to the Dead Harvey podcast. This is Brad. Ted is out again. He is taking care of his kids. He just got a new kid. So he is excused to be gone for today. But we have a great guest filling in for him. Now, Ted is gone because he's being a responsible parent and taking care of this child. Now, if there weren't responsible parents in this world, they may grow up to be criminals. They may get involved in a botched pawn store robbery. And then they might get involved in something even worse and supernatural, which brings us to our guest, Greg Kase, writer, director, executive producer of Vital Instruments. Now, this is a really, really cool short horror movie that was brought to my attention here. Greg, if you want to just kind of jump in, talk about how the whole process started, what the conception of it was, and how long you've been working on this.
Yeah, well, so we've actually been working on it for a couple of years as far as writing it goes. One of the other executive producers, Lee Schatzman, he came to me with the idea of basically what would it be like if it was like Reservoir Dogs meets Hereditary?
Yeah.
Right? Like if it was like a bunch of criminals that accidentally find themselves involved in the worst night of their life,
Yeah,
by being trapped with a bunch of witches that are trying to kill themselves after already having such a horrible experience by botching up this robbery.
Yeah. That's great. Like, I love like the whole crime movies. I like a lot, but then once you throw the supernatural element into it, that adds a whole other layer to it. That's what I think is so cool about horror movies, especially like the short horror movie format, because you can really basically like the intensity of it when the viewer is watching on there, because they can't let up. And from the look of this thing that like reminded me of, that like kicked into my head when I first watched the trailer, it was like, this takes place in the dead of night, like things that go bump in the night, like where you're walking through and you can barely see shit. And then like once the light shines on something, you get that instant jump scare. But this doesn't look like there's any fake jump scares in it. This looks like it's intense all the way through.
Yeah, we tried to avoid the jump scares because, I mean, as much as I love, horror movie, I love all horror movies.
Yeah.
I'll pretty much watch anything horror related, including the cheap jump scare. But there's a time and a place for it, and this is not necessarily it. We wanted to create something that really made you feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
That didn't just pop out of the shadows. We wanted the shadows to be there the whole time, scaring you.
Yeah.
And I think that I think we actually did achieve that, to be honest. I think that we threw a couple in there just to appease the fans of jump scares, but we tried to steer away from it as much as we can, but just by having something that is just truly terrifying.
Yeah, definitely. Were there any moments where you were shooting where everybody got freaked out? Anything like something that happened that freaked anybody out when you were shooting?
There were a couple of small things. Like there was one time a bat got stuck in the barn with us. We filmed on location, and we filmed in this old barn that was I think it was like 150 years old or something like that we had found in upstate New York, and we spent the entire weekend there. So like and then we had to bring in all our own power and lights and everything like that. So like the barn really just gave a lot of influence into the way that everybody was feeling, because there were a lot of dark corners of the barn, and it was very quiet and it was cold and but I mean, as far as supernatural things happening, I guess it depends on who you talk to.
Right. Yeah.
There were moments where people found themselves alone in a dark spot, and people got a little creeped out. You see something move in the corner that isn't actually there. But I feel like those things happen not just there, but like everywhere. Like those little shadows that move in the corners.
Oh,
and
yeah.
You think that it's something, and it might be. But it's hard to tell, because when you look, it's gone.
Oh yeah, and your mind can really start messing with you when you're in places like that. That's the cool thing about the location you guys got, is it looks like so authentically creepy that like places like farmhouses and things like that are out in the middle, they're sort of reminding me of the that the new Ty West movie X, when they went out on that
saw,
farmhouse in the middle of Texas, and you
Yeah.
instantly just get like a creepy feeling when you see that. But like that,
Yeah.
and you have a location manager background too, so that can go into. So that's cool that you had all that practice, and instantly you can probably recognize something that would work well for it. But for the viewer, like to me as a viewer, like it instantly draws me in once you see a location that's super creepy. And you could tell if you're being there, especially like working on it, your mind would be playing tricks with you all the time. But that could add also to the authenticity of it, because I think from what I'm seeing here in the trailer, like a lot of like low budget movies, they're often hijacked by acting and everything like that. But it looks like you guys have some really, really good performances from just what I'm seeing in the trailer here.
Oh yeah, the actors were amazing. They really dove into it. I think I think a lot of it had to, I mean, we auditioned a bunch of people, and these people, they were just perfect for the role, and they were very passionate about it. And we asked them, we actually asked them to read, when we were auditioning them, to read lines from other horror movies that we were basing characters off of, and we didn't tell them which movie it was from. We just gave them a line, and we wanted to see if they could embody what we were looking for, and they did, and they killed it. And I also think that the elements that we were shooting in just added to the fuel of what they were needing to experience to give the performance that they did.
Right.
I mean, it was cold. We were doing all overnights. We shot overnight every single night, and it was hard. We shot long days, and everybody just gave it everything, and I'm so appreciative of them for that.
Yeah, like when you hear like and I read stories about when they're making the original Chainsaw and the brutality of the conditions there. Like I heard about this too, like when I was watching The Northman, they were talking about how cold it was and what a pain in the ass it was, because they were running around kind of like almost naked in that movie, and it was they were dealing with this extreme weather. And then but also that can also add to the authenticity of it, because when you watch the original Chainsaw and you see the lead actress scream, I think it's Marilyn Burns, but when she screams, there's that horror that's like you can tell is coming from deep inside of her. And you hear the stories about the extreme like heat exhaustion, like Leatherface hadn't taken a shower in 3 weeks. There was like vomit and stuff like lying around, but that stuff came across as very real. But I do think that like definitely shooting on location, and that's kind of the thing, is that like a lot of the green screen stuff takes away from that authenticity of being on location. And then for the actors as well too, I think it helps them get a lot more into it when they're really there, and then like dealing with it. And speaking of dealing with it, like I was reading over like the website and like looking at the Kickstarter campaign, and it was talking about like what you had to deal with when you were shooting, and basically all your money went into the drain after COVID started. And so tell us about kind of like what happened to you there.
So we had planned this whole thing, and we set it all up. We were ready to go. We went out there. We had tested everybody and retested everybody to be safe. A couple of us on there had some experience in COVID departments on bigger productions, so we kind of knew the protocols. And then we just retested everybody just to be safe, and somebody turned up positive. So we decided it was the responsible thing to do to shut down, because it was one of our main characters, and we, one, couldn't do it without her, and two, she had been on screen with a number of the other actors without a mask on, and we thought it's just not worth it to us to risk other people's safety when it comes to COVID, and that we're just going to have to come back at some point. So we shut down after the first day of shooting and had to come back, which we couldn't, align everybody's schedule along with the availability of the location for another month. And by that time, it was October, November when we went back. And the difference in temperature was drastic. When the first time we went there, it was warm enough that we could all wear a light jacket overnight and get everything we needed to do. And the second time we went down there, it was like in the low 20s at night. So we ended up having to spend a bunch of extra money on safety things for people to be able to stay warm when we were out there in the barn, because it's not like the barn had insulation. It was there were holes in the wall, it was, and not to mention we had to add a whole nother weekend of location costs, of travel costs, of lodging, of food. It was just like, it basically doubled our budget.
Yeah.
You know, and it was unfortunate, but everybody came together. Nobody quit. You know, like everybody pushed on, and we made it work. But now we, like you said, started the Kickstarter because while we were able to finish the movie, shooting it and cutting it, we still, you know, we really want to give it a nice original score. We want to get some really dope sound mixing because it was, you know, that's what makes a horror movie. I mean, the visual is just only a piece of it, you know. So we would really like to give this the ending that it deserves, you know, because I think we have something really special here. I think we have something unique, which you know, while I love all these horror movies that are coming out, a lot of them are reboots and, you know, sequels and just kind of the same story told in a different way. And I think that what we have here is just something a little different.
Yeah, definitely. That's what grabbed me about it too. Is like the hook of it is great. Like I love stories about criminals. They see something that's either more evil than them, and then they start to kind of become better. They start to become like a better person, or they kind of go the other way, or they split amongst like the ranks that they're in. Like one person like gets a little bit more moral, the other person, you know, like you see they're completely amoral or sociopathic. But it's cool to like throw that element into it, like especially like when the supernatural gets thrown in there and they're dealing with something more crazy than they are, and so they all kind of have to pick sides. But I love that whole chemistry of it, but that adds, you know.
Yeah, and it's funny because these characters, these men in the movie, they, you know, they are who they are, and they are struggling the entire time with that of the morality of what they should do because when they show up to the barn, it's not like they kidnapped these girls. You know, they walked in and they were already tied up, and you know, they end up trying to come to terms with what they have to do, what's best for them, but also what's the right thing to do. And it's not that they really learn any lessons on their own, because more like they just come to terms with who they are. And while losing control in every aspect that they could, when in the beginning they thought that they had it, and they just keep grasping at straws that just keep going away. And I kind of love that. You know, I love the idea that you don't always win. You know,
Yeah, and it's appropriate for like the setting too. Like I was watching Ozark the other day, and my brother was like, I was like, have you finished Ozark yet? Because the recent one that came out, he was like, oh man, that shit gets real dark. And so when I started watching, I was like, whoa, it got real dark, but it was appropriate for what happened. Like they knew what they were getting into when they got into it. They knew the warning signs. They ignored the red flags. They kept going. It's very appropriate for the way they set everything up and how they had the show. That's what I thought was cool about the way they ended it, which unlike a lot of movies, like especially like a lot of remakes like you were talking about, they don't, most of them don't seem to me to do anything different with the story at all. They just basically change a few elements or like a different setting to it, and then it's the same thing but like told not as well or not as creatively or not with that originally, like, because a lot of those movies are like a total lightning bolt that they worked, and then once they try and recreate it and then remake and then change it, it's much more of a challenge to get it to work.
It's not it doesn't always work. The only one that I could think of that really, or two that really truly worked, Evil Dead. I think the remake is really good. And Suspiria, I think the remake was very good. And but those were like, you know, two, like you said, lightning in a bottle when they first came out. You know, like, and I wouldn't even know if I would call Suspiria lightning in a bottle because I don't think it was as successful as Evil Dead was. But it's but I think that we need new material. You know, there's a lot of people out there that have great ideas and just need a shot to do it. And I think, you know, I'm hoping that maybe this, you know, movie can open the eyes, you know, of the people that have power, you know, that there is other things out there, and that they should start giving other people a chance.
Yeah, absolutely. And like what I think what we're going to see here and what I've already started to see is a kind of like an independent creative renaissance, because with the movies at the theater right now, there's very few indie movies they let in. Like when I saw that Ty West movie, it was playing at my theater for like a week and then it was gone. So they
Right.
rarely ever
That was
give
it.
indie, yeah, they rarely ever give indie stuff a chance. And it looks like everything's like moving kind of to more towards more streaming now. And
Hmm.
unless like somebody goes to the theater and they're like, I'm going to go see the big tentpole movie, I think people are going to be, be accessing stuff on streaming a lot more. And indie movies are going to get a lot more of a venue than they used to have, because just for the fact that like Hollywood seems to have gotten so completely creatively bankrupt with the big stuff, you know.
Right. Right. Yeah, no, I agree. And you know what? I mean, like the streaming is a great platform. I mean, especially with COVID and all these people that are like,
Yeah,
you know, a lot. I still know a lot of people that are just afraid to go to the movies, and
yeah,
I get it. You know, everybody is entitled to their belief, which is a big part of what my movie is as
yeah,
well. Is you know, believe what you believe, and who the fuck are you to tell me not to? I'm sorry, am I allowed to curse?
oh no, well, yeah, however you like, yeah, completely free, yeah.
Okay. um, but streaming is still. I like. You know what I liked? I liked during COVID, and they had just opened movie theaters back up,
Yeah,
and I love that. Despite how many people got pissed off about this on the studio level,
uh-huh.
I loved that Warner Brothers decided to release all their movies same day, streaming
Yeah,
and in theaters, because it just opens up a whole nother market. I mean, like, you know, there's people that can't afford to go to those movies. There's people that don't have time to go to the movies,
yeah,
or don't have the energy, you know, and like having a platform to be able to watch at home is just as good to me. You know, I mean, like, because not every movie is Star Wars. You know,
yeah,
Star Wars, yeah, sure, deserves to be on the big screen and seen on the big screen, but like horror movies, while I love going to a theater to see a horror movie, sometimes it's just as scary when you're sitting alone in a dark room in your house.
oh
You
yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah.
so, so
And especially like when you're alone, because you and then you hear the noises, all the noises of the house. I remember like
right,
growing up and watching the what was that, Tales from the Dark Side, and like the like the black and white like imagery of like they're like doing that tracking shot amongst the trees, and I was like instantly freaked out, and then everything I heard in the house scared me. So
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
That's what happened to me with what was it? I guess it was the Blair Witch Project, the first one back in
hmm,
'98 or whatever. And I was a kid, and I remember my mom let me rent it from Blockbuster on VHS, and we were living in this house in upstate New York that was like on the edge of the woods,
uh-huh.
you know, and we were kind of isolated, and it was this big old like, you know, house from like the late 1800s that had a lot of creaks and you know, like spooky things in there, and there was like this weird dirt basement that was underneath the kitchen and like a trap door in the in
Yeah,
the kitchen. And I remember watching it, and I couldn't finish it. I
hmm,
turned it off because I kept hearing things
oh
outside the
yeah,
window, or hearing like a twig break, and it freaked me out, you know. So
hmm,
I couldn't watch it like that. I mean, then you know, then the light came on, you know, in the morning I would watch it.
yeah.
But yeah, and I don't know, it's great. I think that horror has come a long way. I think that movie viewing experience has come a long way, and I'm you know, I'm excited to see what the next things are. You know.
Cool, awesome, yeah, me as well. And I think, yeah, I do think that like we're going to start to see independent movies becoming a lot more competition with Hollywood, as just for the fact that like not that many people are going to the theater, or maybe like 10% of what's getting made people are actually seeing at the theater on a regular basis. And now that everybody's so accustomed to streaming because of COVID, everybody's at home and everybody's checking out these indie movies more. And I keep seeing more like different stuff coming out. So I think it's a really cool time that we're in, actually. Let's check out some of your Kickstarter. Here, I'm going to pull up some of these on here. Some of your Kickstarter perks. You guys are doing awesome right now, because so this is an $8,000 goal. So you launched it Tuesday, and you've already raised 1,647, which is fantastic. So I think you guys are going to make this goal pretty soon here, and hopefully like and I think you're going to exceed it and get some like extra, what do they call it when it goes after, when it runs on Kickstarter after its initial run, and then you can still like keep it up for.
Yeah, well, so from my understanding, it runs the entire 30 days that you set it up for, and you can push past it. I've seen other pages do it,
Yeah,
um, which which would be good because honestly, I mean, the way that we set it up, we're asking for $8,000, but we really need more than that. I mean, we're willing to keep putting in money into this. We're not done throwing, you know, like ourselves at it. We're just asking for a little bit of help just because of how much extra it ended up costing us.
Yeah.
But the bare minimum that we do need to like really lock this in so we could start pushing it to festivals and you know, trying to get backing for a feature is $8,000 to get the music sorted for it. And I'm so like, I mean, yeah, like the fact that we were able to raise so much in 2 days is incredible to me. I'm so thankful.
Oh yeah, it's awesome, man. Like this is kind of cool too. I like the way that you guys set these up. It's like on all the pledges on here. You got so the dollar pledges, greed, they go by the 7 deadly sins. Then you got sloth, there's a $5 pledge, envy, you know, going through all the sins on there. But this is pretty cool. I mean, I like the one with the shot glass and sticker pack for 20, and then it keeps going up from there. Like the 50 is the movie poster, shot glass sticker pack, special thanks, and then there's a bunch more that gets with $100 one and up. Oh, movie poster, booklet as well too, storyboards booklet. Cool. Yeah, there's some pretty cool books you guys got in here.
We have all hand-drawn storyboards. Lee Shotson, our other executive producer, is also an amazing artist, and he drew up all the storyboards for us for when we were filming. big book like that, like of storyboards for us to use. It was very helpful in the filming process. Just to move, because we had so much to film. I mean, like really, we had a lot to film in the amount of time that we had to do it. And like I said, we were working 16, 18-hour days, you know, when we were up there. And having those was really helpful to set everything up, show everybody what we needed to do, and kind of get everybody in the mindset. And to the point of the reason why we labeled the 7 deadly sins there is because the witches in our story, we designed them each after a deadly sin.
Oh, that's cool.
Because the idea of it is that they're trying to summon the 7 princes of hell by.
There's the hereditary angle in there. Yeah.
Hereditary angle, right? So they're trying to sacrifice themselves and give themselves, their bodies up to hell and to the devils. So it was great to, you know, have that be part of our story. It was interesting to go into it. It also felt like we were doing something wrong, you know, like we were like that. We were like, you know, by saying all their names, by so many times, by giving them characters and lines and showing what they're capable of. It felt like
you were putting a curse on yourself. Yeah.
So we were maybe putting a little bit of a curse on ourselves.
Have you seen that cursed films that's on Shudder right now?
Yes, I have.
That was,
I think some of them. It was dark.
The Serpent and the Rainbow one, where they dug up the graves and they're like, "We're all going to hell now."
Yeah. There's that one. There's I saw The Crow, and I think the Twilight Zone movie was one of them.
It's crazy stuff. Yeah. But and then because it's in Hereditary, it was just one demon spawn they were conjuring, but in this one, it's 7 of them.
All of them.
Yeah.
All of them.
So,
but it was cool.
So what would be like, I think this, because we kind of like to throw out some like advice for people and whatnot. And you obviously were up against a lot of challenges when you ran out of all your money because of COVID. And then when you had to film it again. So what do you think like the best assets that to have as a director or to have when you're facing challenges like that and how to go about solving them?
Driven producers. A team, I mean, I could owe it all really to the team that I had, because they were all super dedicated. They were all driven. They really wanted this, and I think that it helped that, you know, a few of us were also the writers of it, and we, you know, like, so we really wanted this to be made. But really, it's just dedication. It's just because no matter, even if we didn't get shut down, it was still going to be painful.
Yeah.
It was still going to be hard. we made this with like under 20 people, you know.
Yeah.
So like everybody's got to be really in it. Everybody's got to give everything, and it's really just about that drive.
Yeah, it's a miracle enough just that anything gets done. Like when you read about everything that happens in movies get made, like, and a lot of that is kind of like people aren't aware of, and they just kind of see stuff and they just think that it's easy for things to get made. They don't see how the sausage is made. But this is like when there's all the difficulties that show up with just making a movie, and then you have like that COVID element on top of it. When that started happening, I was like, oh my god, this is going to derail so many things with people trying to make stuff, and it just creates like a whole other element of hell, like when you're shooting.
Yeah, and I feel like it did. I feel like a lot of projects got canceled over the course of COVID, and you know, like things just didn't seem worth it to the people that were putting money up for it. And it's, you know, it sucks. It's shitty. You know, I hope that the people that were affected creatively by it, you know, still get to, you know, chase their dream and finish whatever they got started. Like I said, I was very lucky to have a team of people behind me that were really dedicated and wanted this to happen.
Yeah, let's go ahead and give like a shout out to the other people involved in the movie, whoever you want to mention on here.
Yeah, we got like I said, Lee Schatzman, you know, is one of the biggest, you know, people on here, and he's done so much for this project. Jesse Martin, another producer and writer, who also did all of the special effects for the movie. You know, he made all the fake skin and the blood and all that. We've Tyreek Walrend is another producer who jumped in with us, you know, and just kind of just full speed ahead. Had all these great ideas and followed through on them, and you know, Caitlin Farley, who was in charge of our stunts and also helped out with makeup and costume, and she's got a great team behind her as well, and she was also one of our witches. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the whole cast was amazing, and Alice Gaina, she's you know, also really helped out with us, who's Lee's partner, and also helped out with a lot of the producing aspects of it. Yeah, I mean, you know, Merrill's Farm, which is where we went to go shoot it. They were great. You know, everybody was amazing.
Yeah, it looks like you got a really great team assembled together out here. Because you mentioned Hereditary. When I saw that movie, and then like Arya Star's movies, Midsummer and then Hereditary, those movies, like both those movies, they stay in your mind. And even if you're like, even if it's unpleasant watching them, or even if it's like you can't eat spaghetti with red sauce when you're watching them, or you got to be in like, you know, like with horror movies like that, but they stay in your mind, like that scene where she's stabbing herself, and just like the whole tone of the movie, how it made me feel like something was just like wrong all the time. And he does like those camera shots that kind of twist, so it feels like your world's going upside down. But I just remember those two movies really stuck in my mind. And I think, like, what's the one thing you want people to walk away from? What's the effect you want people to have when they're watching this that'll stay in their mind?
So the way that we kind of put this together, we kind of made it, I mean, like, it's one, there are parts that are like really gruesome, right? But not for no reason. It was all for realism and to kind of make you feel like you were there. But we wanted to make it feel like a dream, you know, like that that you by the end of it, you weren't sure that what you just watched actually happened. You know, that's
cool. I like that. Yeah.
And I think we accomplished that. But you know, like we show a number of people killing themselves in the name of Satan, and they all do it with a smile on their face because they're so happy to be able to accomplish their goal and succeed in even. And I think that's going to stick with people.
Oh yeah, like that very dedicated to the cult vibe on there. Yeah, they're all in on the cult at that point when they're happy. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, and like stuff like that. Yeah, when there's certain scenes in movies, or if it's the tone about a movie, somehow like some movies just have like a certain little magic element to it that makes it stick in your head. Whereas other movies you'll watch and you'll sort of forget, like, you know, a day or two or a week after you watch it. But yeah, this looks like it has those qualities, and that's cool. Like that surreal quality is great. Like I can't remember what I watched recently that had that, but you couldn't tell like whether it was real or not. And that has like that adds like a different layer for an effect onto it. But no, that's awesome. I think you guys got something pretty special here. So
Thank you.
see if yeah, definitely. What drew you to horror in the first place?
I could actually give that hat to my Jesse Martin, who's one of the other producers and writer, who's also my cousin. And I would go over to his house, you know, and hang out. Like my parents would drop me off there, spend a day or two there, and he would always be watching, like, you know, Pumpkinhead or
that's a good one. Yeah.
Or something like that. And you know, so I got introduced to horror pretty early on. But then it wasn't until I went over to my mom's friend's house one time. She brought me over there, and they were like, "Oh, go into the basement. There's some movies down there you can watch. You know, like we'll be down in a couple hours. You know." And Evil Dead was down there, and I was about 11 years old, and that stuck with me. I mean, that movie really stuck with me, and from that moment on, I just loved it, and I love even shitty horror movies, like the really worst ones. I still love them because I think that there's something to be learned about filmmaking from horror movies. The characters are very tropey, a lot of them, you know, but they're great characters, and they teach you how to write, I think, better, and also just I love practical effects. I love practical makeup. So you know, Evil Dead was great for that. And I just, these things, like, it's just all practical movie making to me, and it's impressive, and it's fun, and it's like it really holds you into it, and that's something that I love, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we're all about like the practical stuff, and to me it's like it feels like I get pulled out of the movie a lot quicker if it's CGI or if it's noticeable CGI. I know when they mix like practical and CGI, I think it's cool, like Peter Jackson does. But when it's like practical and it's on like a lower budget, I think it's so much more effective, and it just keeps you. It has this three-dimensional quality that keeps you in the movie. And I just love the art form of it too, and especially since it's kind of rare to see because not that many people do it anymore. But you see a lot of indie guys are still doing it, which I think is awesome, because a lot of like generation growing up is not even familiar with the practical stuff, you know, that we're familiar with in the 80s, or like The Thing and all that awesome stuff that used to be labeled as gore porn, but is now labeled as modern classics, which is hilarious. Yeah.
No, it brings, I think it shows more talent and dedication, you know, because like with CGI, you know, they're wearing a green suit, and not to knock on CGI too much, because I mean, like, that's also impressive, just in a much different way. I think you kind of nailed it on the head, where it's just like it doesn't grip you as much, it doesn't feel real, you know. And when somebody has to wear, you know, prosthetic face, you know, like face attachments, and like in, you know, like, I guess a good one would be Pet Sematary, right, where where Pascal, right, the ghost of Pascal.
Like,
the neck thing going all the time, and he was like that the entire movie. How many countless hours did he have to sit there with that shit and, like, you know, be touched up? And it's just like it's just a more dedicated art form, I think, is that practical stuff.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. So this kind of thing, like we were kind of mentioning that too, as we were talking about the other day, like they're just different art forms. But I just really love to see like the practical stuff, because it's just like that kind of DIY, or not the DIY, it's a completely different effect. It's the DIY effect, which will not get you a fine. But and it'll draw all the fans of horror movies into that as well too, that love the practical effects. But yeah, fantastic. So we put the so in the show notes, we added the website, the Kickstarter campaign link, and also the trailer as well too. And I think the trailer is pretty sweet because there's an element of mystery about it, which does not show everything, which just kind of shows like the setup for it. You know, something's gonna go down real bad. You know, it's gonna be supernatural, but other than that, like, you're sort of left like literally like in the dark. But I think that's cool. I think that just keeps keeps people wanting to watch more.
Well, yeah, that was kind of the idea. I mean, we wanted to always kind of market it in a way where you didn't really know what was happening, that you just knew that there were these three guys that got thrown into something really fucking weird.
Yeah.
And that's, we wanted to, I mean, initially when we started talking about it, we wanted to promote it as a crime movie and not even talk about the horror part of it.
Yeah.
Kind of there. But I think for what we're doing right now, and that's maybe something we could talk about if we could, we could ever get funding for a feature. But I think the way that we need to market this is, to kind of show people that you're in for a messy ride.
Yeah. It definitely looks like things are gonna get very messy. Yeah. Cool. So is there anything else that you wanted to mention about the movie, or any like kind of links that you wanted to bring up, or anything that people can go to check out, any additional information on it?
I think just come, check out our website, follow us on Instagram and Facebook, and if you can support us in any way on our Kickstarter, that'd be great. If you could just share it, that's also great. Can't wait to show you guys what we got. Can't wait to start sending it around.
Yeah, looking forward to it. It's got a really cool high concept link for an indie movie, which I think is awesome, because what we've been talking about for a while is like indie movies that have a high concept and have like the scale of it very large, but are also self-contained, I think is awesome. I think that's a great formula for putting indie movies together. Is there any other kind of like formulas you think that like work really well for indie movies that people would be able to know about?
It's funny because it's like the formula for an indie horror movie, I think, doesn't really stray too far from a non-indie horror movie. It's just about the mystery and about the revealing at the right time and showing people what you want them to see until they can see the whole picture.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I think it allows like with like the big concept with an indie movie, I think it allows like your imagination to really grow. Kind of like how you're talking about making this like a very like surrealistic kind of effect on people, I think is great to let the imagination go to those spots as well too.
Keep them guessing, always keep them guessing.
Yeah, definitely. Well, awesome. Yeah, so we have been talking with Greg Kase, writer, executive producer, and director of Vital Instruments. And we wish you a lot of luck, but I think you're doing fantastic right now. And I look forward to seeing your movie go past the campaign on here, and for this to like people to really get to really dig it and get into it, and for you guys to be able to raise more money to make a feature.
I appreciate it. Yeah, we need all the luck we can get here.
Yeah. Well, that's part of that is all the hard work you guys put into it and the really cool concept of it. There's a lot of elements that I think are coming into play on this really well that don't often happen with low budget movies.
Yeah.
So cool. Well, thank you so much for your time, and it was great speaking with you. And I'm going to be looking forward to following this and seeing what's happening.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, Rick. Well, everybody have a good rest of your week, and thanks for listening to the Dead Harvey podcast. We will talk to you next time.
Thanks, everybody.